and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. Joining me on the broadcast is a very special guest who's come all the way from Washington, D.C. right over here in the national capital. Atul Keshap, he is the president of the US-India Business Council. He has also been the charge d'affaires recently, coming in from the United States and heading the affairs of America in India. It's good to have you, Atul Keshap, on the broadcast with us.
Lovely to see you, Megha. Thank you for having me on the show.
First things first, I would like to understand from you, you visited Bangalore, you have been in Mumbai, it's been a tight, hectic schedule, and now you're in the national capital. How's the entire trip been?
It's been great. I actually visited another part of Bangalore that's a little bit further away, called Palo Alto, California. So I went to Palo Alto, and I'll tell you, when you're in Palo Alto, California, in the beating heart of Silicon Valley, you realize that Bangalore is not far away at all. That in fact, if you look at how much the digital economy stayed alive and vibrant and supported all of our people through the pandemic, Bangalore and Palo Alto, Bangalore and Silicon Valley played a huge role. And I don't feel very far from India at all when I'm in Silicon Valley. There are so many Indians, Indian Americans helping design and operate the economy of the future.
You talk about economy of the future, and there was the much touted Idea Summit that you actually addressed. You met with the top entrepreneurs of our country. How was that engagement like, and what are the kind of opportunities that you witnessed in terms of the US-India trade ties?
So I take a very long view on US-India and on India itself because, put bluntly, I'm getting old, and I have 5 decades of memories of India. And the India of today is really the India of my dreams of the 1970s and 80s. Look at Lower Parel in Mumbai, 50 and 80-story skyscrapers as far as the eye can see, packed with the most innovative, future-oriented American and Indian companies. American and Indian investment powering the boom that is happening in modern India. Indian companies in America prospering mightily and helping spur a renaissance all around our country. American companies in India. Go to Bangalore, take a look at what I've seen. Lower Parel, look at Gurgaon. I feel like this is what I have always dreamed of as a child coming here. And I'm so happy to see it in my lifetime. And I think that we're only just beginning. India has dreams of being a $10 trillion economy. I say let's go for 20 trillion. It would be good for America, it would be good for India, it would be good for freedom-loving people all around the world.
Yeah, okay. So since we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar economies and joining of hands when it comes to United States of America and the Indian economy, and looking at how India is the largest economy that is at this point in time touted to grow in its GDP. And even taking a look at the larger expanse where this massive leaders summit has happened, the Quad, and specific to the Biden administration's trade pact of having the Indo-Pacific Charter rolled out. How does India come into the picture? How does Indo-Pacific come into the picture? And how are you going to implement this? Because that's going to be the tough task.
Look, I think that after 20 years of courtship and work by thousands of people in both systems, India and the United States are now in the 2 critical groupings for us to be able to put on our sneakers, our track shoes, and run even faster. Look at the Quad. Look at what the Quad is emphasizing. The Quad is emphasizing the peace, happiness, freedom, prosperity of all of the people of the Indo-Pacific. Sovereignty, democracy, ideas that are about empowering human citizens, about ensuring strong and resilient societies. Look at all of the work objectives of the Quad. It is to take care of the human being, vaccines, resilient supply chains. Then you look at the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. For the first time in my whole professional career, India and the United States are now in an Indo-Pacific focused economic arrangement together. And I'm hearing very optimistic and positive things from officials in both governments. And I think that we have only just begun. I think amazing things are going to happen in the next 20 years.
And what do you think are going to be the focus areas? Which are the sectors that are going to be tapped by these 13 nations, which are the founding members of the Indo-Pacific Charter that has been rolled out?
So I think it's really important for high trust, innovation, knowledge societies to develop clear standards for their shared prosperity. If you look at the absolutely boundless frontiers of financial technology, if you look at the digital economy, think about the fact that we all sat home during the pandemic and did our work on laptops and beamed into meetings all over the world and watched Netflix or whatever streaming media. That digital economy is the backbone of our future lives. Getting those standards right and making sure that high trust societies can enable each other and contribute to each other's peace and happiness is critical. I think that's going to be the work of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. We also need resilient, secure supply chains. Arguably, you could call it a free world supply chain where I trust you, you trust me, we trust those folks, and our companies and our citizens can collaborate for shared genius and shared happiness.
Okay, all right. On that note, let's also pick on the common enemy, which is China. And there has been an aggressive stance that has been taken by President Biden as well in the last comment that he made with regards to the militarization and a warning that has been put forth. Now, in terms of the digital decoupling that has been witnessed in the past couple of years between China and United States of America, is there a benefit that trickles down to India in terms of supply chains and the resilience economies that you talk about?
I may not agree with the thrust of your question, but here's what I think is happening. When I talk to the most sophisticated companies in our membership, we have over 200 member companies, they are driving the future innovation and happiness of the world. They have an enormous amount of trust in America and India. And they are happy to have their most sophisticated operations, their most sophisticated and talented employees working in those two geographies. They realize that the work that we need to do together to ensure free and open systems that are citizen-focused and empower the human being are going to happen in places like Europe, the United States of America, and India. And so that is, for me, the kind of way forward for the prosperity and happiness, not only of our countries, but for the entire world. Countries that aren't yet part of that high trust ecosystem will aspire to be in it. And high trust is something very precious. And there aren't that many countries that enjoy it, but the US and India have it in abundance. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the investment decisions of Indian and American companies right now, and these are running into hundreds of billions of dollars, and they will ensure the GDP of India rises to 10 trillion. Our firms are catalysts. A catalyst in a chemical reaction is something that speeds up a chemical reaction. If the chemical reaction is India at a $10 trillion GDP, America still happy and prosperous and united, the companies and their innovation and their talent are the catalyst. And so the trust we have in each other results in the shared objective. And it's not a question of you win, I lose. No way. That's not the way we play.
Okay, all right. Since we're talking about shared trust and you talk about United States of America and Europe and India working together in the same tandem, do we also talk about the Ukraine war, the involvement of NATO, and now another of the US Treasury officials visiting India and talking about the aim to reduce the oil imports that India continues to have in engagement with Russia? How does that impact investments and businesses between both nations?
Well, India is a sovereign and independent country, and I don't speak for the US government. I speak for my membership and for the US Chamber of Commerce. What I would say is these kinds of disruptions are going to happen more and more. Look at the pandemic and how disruptive that was. Look at this war, which is a war of choosing by one individual that has resulted in enormous hardship in terms of fuel price rise and food price rise that is going to impact the poorest people on earth. And look at how all of us are being forced to adjust to it. Who knows what future shocks will come? But I will tell you this, in the depths of the pandemic, when America desperately needed pharmaceutical drugs from India, India gave them. And in the depths of your pandemic here in April, May last year, when India needed things from the United States and from American producers, we freely and copiously gave them because friends do that for each other. And I think there are actors on the world stage that want to take us backward to a much darker period in humanity, and I refuse to have that happen. I think we have to work together. Very important that the free societies converge and collaborate and serve as that catalyst for each other's prosperity and happiness.
What do you have to make in terms of the kind of messaging and commenting and remarks that are coming across when India goes ahead and bans wheat exports, keeping in mind there is a paucity of grains across the country, across the world?
Well, nations have their first obligation to take care of the peace and happiness and welfare of their own citizens. And that's true in India, it's true in the United States. But I think India has a very large worldview about how it can help around the world. India has given a lot of vaccines to neighbors and friends. India has always tried to help out countries in need, and I don't want to name certain countries, but there are present examples where India and the taxpayers of India are taking care of the dire needs of people. And so when you look at the India wheat policy, it's actually pretty nuanced. And what it is trying to do, I think, and I don't work for the Indian government, is to address the national needs of the people during a moment of great price uncertainty, while also having a compassionate view toward helping countries that may be in even very dire need for wheat and could use it because India has a very large production and potentially has an export capacity.
Okay, talking about defense ties, and there has been a similar kind of a policy that has been utilized by United States of America. Russia and India have continued to be traditional trade partners when it comes to defense. There have been overtures that have been made, and successfully so in the past. There have been trade deals that have been signed between both the nations. Make in India campaign has been projected and supported by United States of America as well. In wake of the very recent proposal that has been put forth and accepted by India, is that a way to again lure India out of the traditional partnership that Russia and India have shared in the past and continue to do so even now?
I won't go with the premise of the question, because what I would say is most important is for the great democracies, and ours are the two greatest democracies. The most important thing is for the great democracies to be as strong as possible. There are serious threats to democracy and human freedom around the world right now. For India to be as capable in defense as possible, as resilient, as able to take care of and sustain its own defense needs as humanly possible, is good for India. It's good for India's citizens. It's good for India's national defense. It's good for the world, and it's good for positive values. So on this, I think our companies, American companies, are the finest in the world in terms of technology, capability, reliability, ethics, transparency, as mandated by law, and that they are very happy to be partners of India's defense renaissance. And if India chooses, because these are sovereign decisions, I think what you're going to see is a degree of reliability and sustainability and technical proficiency, the likes of which will make many, many countries very happy that India is as strong as it is.
Okay, I'll come back to the Indo-Pacific, and especially in terms of the $5 billion boost comes from the infrastructure development that has been pledged by the Quad leaders and the Tokyo summit. There has been aggression that has been shown by the Chinese in terms of the warplanes that have now surfaced in the Tokyo region, in the Japanese defense region. Another anomaly that we witnessed over here is that there were Russian warplanes as well. Now, how does this infrastructure boost in the Indo-Pacific help in checking these aggressive, invasive stance that has been put forth by China time and again, but the new entrant over here we witness, which is Russia?
I would say that the world has seen what it looks like to have a foreign policy and an international system based on the law of the jungle. Might does not make right in the 21st century. The UN was developed, India was a founding member, to uphold the principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty and to avoid the recurrence of global war. America is a big country, India is a big country. If we went around intimidating our neighbors and using force to solve disputes, the world would be a much more dangerous place. There are times when there's a moment when that happens for compelling reasons like protection of civilians, but the other thing that really is important is for countries to realize that there has to be a rules-based international order. India upholds that rules-based international order. I think the nations of the Quad believe in peace and security and critically sovereignty for every country. And if you look at what's happening, there is an erosion of sovereignty taking place, and nations are being given choices. You can take free and easy credit that may lead to a very bad outcome, or you can take sustainable, useful, transparent, ethical, low interest rate credit that actually builds societies, builds prosperity, focuses on human happiness, and ensures the well-being of countries. Having stable, prosperous, open societies around the world is an American vision. It is enshrined in the software of the United Nations. That's a software worth protecting. It's a software, frankly, worth dying for and fighting for, because there is a right and wrong, and there is a good and evil. And we have to be very careful about making sure that humanity's trajectory remains on a positive path.
Okay, all right. Let's again talk about what is happening domestically in terms of disruption when it comes to 5G technology. There was a recent indigenous launch that Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself did of the 5G test beds. We're talking about 2030 indigenous 6G coming into being. How does this disrupt the market internationally, and how does this help investments to pour in from the United States into India?
So that's a great question. And I think as we look forward into how these high trust societies evolve and collaborate, it is very important for us to be careful to ensure that the best ideas, the best innovations, the best talent can be pooled for maximum collective advantage, right? So this is a moment of great peril in world affairs, and nations are being very conservative and very cautious. They're being very protective of what they've achieved, and I understand that completely. But my argument would be that while we do that, we should also see whom we trust. With whom can we have utter friendship, reliability, feeling of confidence, and then when we create that ecosystem of trust, all of that pooled talent, all of those pooled ideas can benefit everybody in the collective. And so if we each create our thing, maybe mine's pretty good, and maybe yours is pretty good, and maybe his is pretty good, but what if all three of us leveraged the genius and unique capabilities of each other and all lived better and happier lives and created, frankly, a blueprint or a model for the entire world to emulate? So I think when you look at Palo Alto and Bangalore, the DNA is shared, the people are shared, the companies, the innovation, the technology, the investment. These are two sides of the same coin. I would hate to see that coin cut in half.
Okay, that's a very unique perspective, and I think that's something that needs to be taken policy-wise and implementation-wise between both nations. And also talking about, in the same breath, digitization and what has happened with the spurt of startups and unicorns, particularly in our country, and that has been unprecedented. How do the future prospects between both nations in terms of entrepreneurs looking to, again, bring in FDI into the country, look from here?
So this is where it doesn't take a whole lot. The principles that draw in FDI are pretty clear. And I talked about it in my speech in Bangalore on Saturday. Ease of doing business, transparency and really like stakeholder-driven regulatory output, level playing field. If countries can do these things and create that enabling kind of environment, investment will come. I go to New York, I meet with private equity firms, I meet with banks. I go to Silicon Valley, I meet with venture capital. They have literally trillions of dollars looking for viable investments. And in an era of profound geopolitical and geostrategic uncertainty, India is looking like a stronger and stronger bet. Now, if there can be really stable policy environments, if there can be very good progress on ease of doing business, and if there can be a level playing field for Indian and international competitors, particularly from high trust societies, I think India is going to get to $10 trillion very fast, because that investment is a catalyst. It speeds up the reaction. The ingredients are all right. The policy indications are all great. And then the catalyst is that massive amount of investment dollars that's going to build the India of tomorrow. Absolutely.
I think in the same vein, there has been an investment initiative that has been signed between the United States of America and India very, very recently on the sidelines of Quad. What is the direction this path is taking?
I think the direction is toward India and the United States being the two most consequential and important countries on earth, and having the single most important bilateral relationship of any two countries on earth. I think our two great nations, the two greatest democracies on earth, have a very positive, ambitious vision of the future happiness of the world. We will get through these present moments. The US and India have faced down tough times together, and we will make sure that the pathways of prosperity are created such that all of humanity can benefit. The vision is big, and the member companies of the US-India Business Council, part of the US Chamber of Commerce, believe passionately in what the founding fathers articulated, which is a vision of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It can be technology and innovation driven. It can be driven by mutual trust and respect. It can be driven by this shared sense of purpose, but I am certain we're going to achieve it.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, Ambassador, one last question. In terms of the kind of challenges US businesses, entrepreneurs see at this point of time while entering India, and how can those challenges be further fought on and allowed for companies to enter into India more easily?
Megha, I really like the Prime Minister's leadership in terms of having India move up the league tables in terms of ease of doing business. My respectful suggestion would be if India were in the top 10 of countries with the ease of doing business, India is going to be a 20 or 30 trillion dollar economy. So ease of doing business, number one. If we can get that, I think you're going to see the world beat a path to your door.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing your thoughts, and it has been a very insightful interview. It's good to have you on NewsX, and hoping to see you more over here in India and having furthermore of these interactions. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.